And we'll start. I'm going to put in the chat as well. I'm just going to put the agenda so that you can refer to that. I did send it out with a calendar invite, but just so you've got something in the chat, that's the agenda we're going to be looking at. So I've still got, I think, Marie to come and Shelley, they're sort of presenting. But if we start off just by introductions, so welcome to the East Riding Voluntary and Key Sector Safeguarding Forum. My name's Detty Tyler. I work for East Riding Voluntary Action Services, and we look after the contract for the Safeguarding Support Service for the voluntary sector. So that's for children and it's for adults, and it complements the other contract that we have, which is around being the lead representative around domestic abuse. So I'm just going to go around my screen. So Gemma Jennison.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you, Detty. Yes, my name is Gemma and I also work as part of the AirVast team. I have two roles, which is one is the VCSE Children's Safeguarding Development Officer, and my other role is Domestic Abuse Lead Representative Support Officer. So my safeguarding role involves supporting all VCSE groups with anything safeguarding related, and very similarly my domestic abuse role, in the same way I support those with domestic abuse, anything from training, support, raising awareness. So if I'll put my details in the chat, so if there's anybody who wants to pass my details on to anybody who could do with support either for the domestic abuse side or safeguarding, just get in touch.
Great stuff, thank you, Gemma. Elaine Agar.
Thanks, Detty. Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Elaine and I'm the local services manager for the Alzheimer's Society. So we currently support around probably about 500 to 600 people living with dementia and their carers in the whole of the East Riding.
That's a lot, Elaine, isn't it? I didn't realise you supported that many. That's considerable. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Monica, and I'm not going to sort of attempt to pronounce your second name, but if you could, I'd be really interested to know how you say
it. Hello, my name is Monica Alexandrovichute. Very long surname. So I work for Humberside and South Yorkshire Anti-Trafficking and Modern Slavery Outreach Worker.
And so that's for Ashiana, isn't it, Monica?
Yeah, I work for Ashiana, so refugees and asylum seekers.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for coming. Yep. Helen. Have you found your mute?
Hello.
There you go.
I was just making sure there was no other Helens on the call.
Sorry.
Just testing you there. Okay. So yeah, Helen Jones-Brown, program manager for Barnardo's collaboration. So between Barnardo's and East Riding of Yorkshire Council, program is main focus is around a 3-year research project.
It's Rebecca from the Disclosure and Barring Service. Join the meeting.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never had that before. Okay, sorry, Helen.
It's okay. So yeah, so a 3-year research project with a focus of child exploitation and including sexual abuse. And the research is as a particular focus of language and terminology. And we are currently undertaking our research as part of our phase 1 of our project. But I think I'm going to come back next time and give a bit of an update. And just to let you know that I will be leaving at 1:30, Detty, because I've got an appointment that I need to be at.
Do you want to say anything else then, Helen, before you have to leave? Is there anything else you want to say? Because yes, we'll put you on the agenda next time, which would be great.
Yeah, but, just to say that phase 1 of our project has been completed, where we've spoken to multi-agency professionals, partners, internal, external, including the voluntary sector. And I know that you've shared some information about the project and what the aims and the objectives are. And also that we've started to talk to young people and parents, carers and guardians about their experience of services. So not their experience of any sexual abuse or child exploitation, but certainly about the processes of services and the accessibility of services. and what that means. So currently working with groups of young people. Our child engagement worker will be working with running some workshops with groups. And just to say, if anybody thinks that they can offer any support around groups of young people in particular, we're looking at doing some workshops, and we'll look at what their worries are, what's working well, anything that they think needs to be improved, and that can be in any sector of support that young people receive in response to, I'm not going to say just child exploitation, I'm going to say earlier identification as well. So that early intervention work,
Yeah.
you know, the importance of that is really crucial to preventing harm to children and keeping them safer sooner would be our message. That's the aim. So if anybody wants to pick up a conversation with me outside of here, Detty, happy to do that.
Brilliant. Can you pop your details in
Yeah.
the chat, Helen, if that's
Yeah.
right? I mean, I know we would be interested from Irvas's point of view with some of our youth groups. So if everybody,
Yeah,
I
I've
would
started
encourage
that.
everybody. I know
I've
you have. You're
started
at
that.
Lollipop,
So
yeah, which is
Lollipop, and then
yeah.
we've got the I'm doing 2 groups, detached youth work
Brilliant.
coming up
that's
for the
good.
twilight football sessions.
Brilliant. Yeah, there's a lot of kids there, about 120.
Yeah, just looking at the Children in Care Council as well. So anybody who's
Right.
got any working with any groups of young people I'd be particularly interested in at this moment in time, or we can pick it up later on because we'll be just picking some other things up that we might have missed as part of our
Brilliant.
phase 2. Okay.
Oh, that's great stuff. Thanks, Helen. I'm going to move to you, Gary, from Scouts, because that you've got lots of groups of young people.
Yeah. So I'm Gary, lead volunteer for Humberside Scouts, to cover East Riding, but also cover North and North East links as well. Yeah, we've got quite a few groups, as you say. We've just done the census, actually, we've just completed our census, 4,300 young people,
Wow.
1,500 adults. So, yeah, quite big in the sector of youth work. I'm interested to know, you know, what this forum can offer, I suppose. From a safeguarding perspective, we have our own processes and rules that we follow anyway. And some of that's dealt with nationally, so we can't engage directly with some of that, although it all comes back local, obviously. Yeah.
Brilliant. And again, Gary, if you could pop your details in the chat, I think it'd be really good. I think maybe Helen to have a chat with Gary afterwards, because of all the, you know, you're right across East Riding with all ages, aren't you, Gary? So that would be definitely.
I just started writing the actually pre-COVID. Helen and I had we'd started some initial discussions when Helen came to one of our managers' meetings around like the different districts. So I'm interested to pick that back up again, Helen, at some point.
Brilliant. Great stuff. Thank you very much. Deborah Wainwright.
Hi, I'm Deborah Wainwright. I'm one of the adult practitioners for safeguarding vulnerable adults in CHCP. So certainly coming in for the adult side of things, but we do work closely with our children's practitioners, so we'll be sharing any information back with them as well.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Deborah. Margaret Wood.
Hello, I'm Margaret Wood. I'm the East Riding Safeguarding Children's Partnership Manager, and the partnership is a partnership across all the statutory services and the voluntary sector, making sure that we've got really robust safeguarding arrangements in place to safeguard children and young people and work with the families as well. So that's our role in a nutshell, really, is to make sure that those safeguarding arrangements in place. And I work with Detty and others in terms of making sure that there's some feedback from this group and from other voluntary sector services as well, to make sure that we're working as a whole system in terms of safeguarding for children.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Margaret. And Julian.
Hi, I work with Margaret. My name is Julian Willis. I'm a Policy and Practice Development Officer in East Riding Safeguarding Children Partnership, and I lead for the partnership around our Training and Development Officer, which is OFFA, which is what I'm here to talk about today. But I also lead and am very closely involved with the work we do around where things haven't gone well. So whether it's rapid reviews, what used to be called serious case reviews, which are now called child safeguarding practice reviews, or learning lessons, anywhere where we feel that we as a multi-agency group can better safeguard children in the East Riding. And that's one of the things that I do within the partnerships, help coordinate that work.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And Sophie Bartup.
Good afternoon, everybody. As I mentioned in the chat, I am new in post as the Community Development Manager at the Smile Foundation. So this is my second week in post. And Nick Middleton's asked me to attend this to introduce myself, so that you can all meet me, and hopefully leading off from the back of this, I can meet you all sort of more individually in terms of how we can work together, partner together. I am also joined on this call by Amelia. Amelia is new to the Smile Foundation as well, and is one of our community producers. So she's also on this call as well with me. So it's nice to meet you all, and I'm sure we'll be working much more closely together, and I look forward to that. So thank you very much, Detty. I really appreciate that.
No, it's brilliant to have you here. Thank you very much. So Colette Oxtoby.
Hi everyone, I'm Colette, I'm from YGAM, and we provide free City and Guilds Assured training to safeguard young people against gaming and gambling related harms. And we do that from Key Stage 2 all the way to further education. And really we provide training for the education sector, youth organisations, healthcare professionals, diverse communities, parents, looked after children, early help practitioners. Really, if you're a youth-facing professional, that's who we kind of target, really. You get access to award-winning resources once you've completed the workshop, and the City and Guilds accreditation. So I'm the regional manager for the Yorkshire and Humber region, but we do have training and engagement managers all across the UK. All over the country, so we can provide workshops both face-to-face and online, wherever you are, really. The only place we haven't quite got to grips with yet is Scotland, but we're hoping, you know, in the future to head into Scotland. But yeah, I'd be the education manager for you guys for Yorkshire and Humber. We've worked with lots of you, I already know, on the call. But yeah, if you have anyone in mind that you think could benefit from, you know, safeguarding against gaming and gambling harms and the risks for young people in the modern world, then do just let me know. I'll leave my details in there for you to get in touch. And as I say, it's all fully funded, and who doesn't like that?
Absolutely. That's brilliant, Colette. And I think it might be an idea. I think we did discuss it, didn't we, about you maybe doing a bit of a presentation at the next meeting.
Yes.
So people can have a bit more of an idea about what you do, because it's such a you know a kind of safeguarding issue and concern, isn't it? But there's not much that we really talk about in the sense of gaming and gambling. I know obviously we do look at it through East Riding Council, through Public Health, and Mel McKee's team. I know I sent you her details, but I think it's just having that broader knowledge of how it affects and impacts young people is really
yes, and it's a bit of a hidden addiction, I think. We're really trying to promote it as a public health issue. And especially with the gaming side of it, it's very uncovered still. You know, we're kind of still waiting for that white paper from the government, but you know, as and when it'll come. So it's really kind of important for people to feel empowered to have those conversations, because they are so important, and you know, prevention is better than a cure. So you know, do just reach out if you're interested, or if you think that someone that you know might be interested. Like I say, we can do it for not just education sector, but a whole host of youth-facing professionals. So yeah, just keep us in mind if you need some upskilling.
Brilliant. That's really helpful to know. And I know it was on the news again this morning, wasn't it, about gambling and things. So yeah, it's definitely
always in the news at the moment.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Isabel Irwin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay, because my internet's a little bit temperamental. My name's Isabel. I work for the charity Hourglass. We're a national organisation that provides support to older people experiencing harm, abuse and exploitation. We also provide specialist IDVA services to older people, currently in the south of England, but looking to open up in other regions, potentially East Riding. And we also provide training around spotting the unique signs of abuse perpetrated against older people and older people's experiences, and also public safety workshops too. So if anyone is interested in that, I'll put my details in the chat, and please do reach out for a discussion.
That's great, Isabel. So no, we had a meeting, didn't we, with yourselves and Tim and Marie from the Safeguarding Adults Board and Shelley, who's going to be coming along a little bit later. Did you and Tim manage to get to a further meeting with East Riding through the collaborative board? I know we did mention that as something.
Yes, I think that's coming up in April.
Right, brilliant.
If I'm right, yeah,
it'll be around that time. So yeah, well, that's brilliant. That's great. Thank you very much. Amelia Holdstock.
Hello, Sophie mentioned my name earlier. I'm also new to the role of community producer at Smile Foundation. So I'm sure you have heard of them already, a parent charity helping other charities with their journey. So perhaps linking them up to volunteers that might be able to help, or funding and grants that are available. And we have been looking, well, for my own knowledge, looking at safeguarding adults and children this week in preparation for this meeting. So it's lovely to meet everyone.
Brilliant, thank you, Amelia. And Jo Sanders Potts.
Hi everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, a bit better now, yeah.
Technical issues at the beginning, which is why I went off and came back on. I couldn't hear anything or see anything, so I feel like we're back. I'm Jo from the Hinge Centre, a charity based in Bridlington. We offer a wide range of support and activities for both vulnerable adults and children in the local area of Bridlington. That's from group work to one-to-one work on both levels. So yeah, that's me.
Great stuff, thanks, Jo. Catherine Law.
Hi there, I'm Catherine Law from the East Riding Safeguarding Adults Board, and I don't know whether Marie sent her apologies already, but
brilliant, yeah, she did.
Give you those. So in terms of the East Riding Safeguarding Adults Board, I know Marie's been here previously, but in terms of what we're doing, I can update that later. I know that's on the agenda.
Perfect.
Isn't it?
Yes, that'd be brilliant, Catherine, if you could do that. That's great. Yeah, thank you very much. That's great. Jackie Bowes.
Hi everybody, I'm Jackie Bowes. I'm the current High Sheriff of the East Riding of Yorkshire. Soon to be coming towards the end of my year, which has just flown by. But my area of focus this year has been very much about violence against women and girls, domestic abuse, and the White Ribbon campaign. And whilst my year is about to come to an end, my quest to continue to work in that area certainly isn't. And I intend, not quite sure yet how, but to continue to champion the cause.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Jackie. And anything we can do to support with that. Yeah, I can't believe your year's almost coming to an end, really. But yes, we will obviously be there to support for the foreseeable anyway. So,
thanks,
Jill. Yeah, Jill Gledhill. There you go. Can you see that? Ask to unmute. Can't. Jill can't unmute. It's at the bottom on the left, right at the bottom, next to where your video icon is.
Sorry, I couldn't find the screen and then I couldn't find the mute button, so I do apologise. So my name's Jill Gledhill. I manage Together Women for Humberside, Circle Hull and the East Riding as well. And we work holistically with people to prevent offending. So we sort of touch on every area of a woman's life. So obviously that can include all sorts of aspects of relationships. We also work with perpetrators. So I think sometimes that's something to think about as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks very much for coming, Jill. And Julie Rodriguez. Oh, her mic and her camera's not working. That's right, Julie. So Julie Rodriguez or Rodriguez, I'm never 100% sure how to pronounce it, but hopefully that was right. And she's from Humber All Nations Alliance, which is an infrastructure organisation in the voluntary sector that supports many other organisations across the area that work with the communities that are from a BAME community, really. So lots of different diversities, cultures, across the whole of Hull, East Riding, and is it the South Bank as well, Julie? I'm not 100% sure, but I know Gemma, you've met recently with Julie, haven't you, to explore how we can work a bit closer together to make sure that all groups working with different ethnicities and cultures have got all the support that they need in terms of keeping people safe. So we're looking forward to working with you more, Julie, and thank you very much for coming today. And then I think we've got Rebecca Bull, who is our calling user. I think that's you, Rebecca, from the DBS. Is that right?
It is. I don't know if can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay. We can hear you, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, I'm so sorry. My computer had a complete meltdown when trying to log on to this Zoom meeting, but it has allowed me to dial in. So whilst I can't see anything, I can hear everybody perfectly well. And yes, sorry, it's Rebecca from the Disclosure and Barring Service with computer meltdown in tow. But yes, of course, Disclosure and Barring Service, primarily known for our criminal records checks, but we also maintain those barred lists. So people who have been put on the children's barred list or adults barred list because there is safeguarding concerns about that person working with children or vulnerable adults. So when organisations like what a representative of here today may have to remove a member of staff or volunteer from their organisation because of safeguarding concerns, if that person gets referred through to DBS, we can bar them and prevent them from getting into those future positions of trust. And again, apologies for having to dial in rather than be face to face on the meeting. I do apologise.
No problem. Well, thank you very much for coming along anyway. It's great to have you here because I know you did a presentation last time. So just to remind people, if anybody has got any queries or thoughts around DBSs for either volunteers or staff, they're not sure about something, then they can get in touch with yourself, can't they, Rebecca, to double check, and all the details of how to get in touch with you can be shared in the minutes. But there was the presentation from last time as well. So
there was, and thank you for having me back again. So that shows the presentation wasn't too dry.
No, it's
great to be here. Thank you. And yes, mirror what you've just said, Detty. If I can be of any help or support with anything DBS, please just drop me an email.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So I think that's all of us here. So I'm just going to give apologies. So we've got apologies from Debbie Hancock from the council's DBAP team, does work with individuals and communities around domestic abuse. We've got apologies from CEASE, apologies from Councillor Aitken, Susie Boville from Home Start Gordon District, Fiona Wales from the Beverley Community Lift, Yvette McCormick, who's the Violence Prevention Officer at the council, and Raymonda Curtis from Ashiana, but Monica is here in her place, and also Marie Chapel. So just going to let Shelley in, and Shelley will be doing a presentation, so we'll just I'll let her introduce herself when she does that, if that's okay. So just going to go to the minutes of the last meeting, if that's okay, just to pick up on any outstanding actions. So I'll just find those. No, not those ones. Just let me get on the right thing. Okay. And as I say, I'm recording this, so so if anybody has missed part of it, or for those people who couldn't make today, it will be on our website, so people will be able to refer back to it. So just looking at when we met last time was on the 5th of October, and going through the minutes from the last meeting and any actions which I've highlighted in red. So we're just going to go to the red bits. One of the things we wanted to look at was user engagement, particularly around adults in regard to East Riding Safeguarding Adults Board, and have it on the agenda, which we have for today. So we're going to have a bit of a discussion about how do we involve adults in service development within the East Riding, working with voluntary and community sector groups in particular. So that's one of the things we can look at later. Then we were looking at the conference. So yeah, we were talking about having a voluntary and community sector safeguarding conference, which we have booked with Gary at the Humberside Scouts headquarters at Railwell Park, which is fantastic. So thank you very, very much for that, Gary. So that's going to take place on the 6th of July. Gemma is leading on it and doing a brilliant job. We've got some of you are here today who are going to deliver workshops, which is fantastic. So we're going to be looking at a variety of different workshops, which will include Ashiana, Rebecca from DBS. We've got Prevent, we've got Violence Against Women and Girls, we've got Hourglass, we've got Cease, we've got all sorts. So it's going to be all sorts face to face. It'll be a whole day with an evening, so slightly different audiences. We'll send out further information about that once it's all finalised, really, in terms of timings and workshops specifically. There's Rebecca Bull's details, which I'll copy those actually and put those in the chat, so you've got all that information about how to contact her. Gemma, you were going to get in touch with Strive, who had a forum around supporting designated safeguarding leads. Do you want to update on that? Because I think there's been some changes, hasn't there, to Strive?
Yeah, I believe so. I did make contact and sent an email to the contact who we'd had a meeting with some months prior, but I haven't heard back anything, and I've tried to kind of look online for any more information to share today, but there's not a lot there. So yeah, I don't know.
I think it was, yeah, I think it was just about
maybe.
Yeah, sorry, I think it was just having a toolkit, wasn't it, online, like a platform for people to get together who were designated safeguarding.
Oh, sorry, yeah, it was, and you could share kind of anonymized safeguarding concerns and kind of allow others to respond. Yeah, so it was a positive thing. If I do hear any updates or have any further contacts, I'll bring it back to the meeting and share it.
Brilliant. But I know they did say it was time limited, didn't they? So they may well not have that anymore. So the next item in red was for myself to invite a speaker on violence against women and girls, which I have done. So Shelley, I know that you've arrived now, so thank you very much for coming along today and presenting later on. So that's brilliant. So we can all learn more about VAWG as it's known. Marie had a action to contact Isabel from Hourglass, so we all met up with Hourglass, as I said earlier, and I also did some funding searches, which I think I sent to everybody around domestic abuse on the domestic abuse forum, including Hourglass. What I will say is, if anybody has got any needs around funding, and obviously Smile are here as well, so that's great. So there's both of us. So if you were looking for funding to develop safeguarding within your setting, please get in touch with myself or with Smile, and we can do funding searches for you and point you in the right direction. So just let us know if there's anything you particularly want some funding for. And I think that was all the actual actions, so I shall stop sharing. Was everybody okay with those who was here? Any of the comments, thoughts? No, all right, that brilliant. Okay, so moving to the next item on the agenda, it's an update from yourself, Margaret, if that's okay, in terms of the Safeguarding Children Partnership.
Thank you. In terms of an update from the, we've got feedback, haven't we? Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's just you. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
In terms of feedback from the partnership, as a partnership, we've been working and supporting the local authority with the recent Ofsted inspection and an ILAC inspection, which is looking at the child's journey through the safeguarding system and how we're supporting children and young people, making sure that the children are at the centre of any response to safeguarding concerns that are raised. So as a partnership, we've been very much involved in that. I know that Ofsted inspectors met a number of partners. Feedback and the final report will be available and be published on the 24th of March this year. It's very sort of feedback is very informal at the moment, but one thing I can say is that partners that were involved with the Ofsted inspection were really impressed the Ofsted inspectors, and they felt that there was really good commitment from partners, and including the voluntary sector, for the work with young people to safeguard them and meet their needs. So, you know, that initial feedback was really, really positive, and I can't wait for the final report to come out in March. And certainly as a partnership, we'll be sharing that within the forum when it's published. So if I do that through yourself, Detty, would that be all right?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, that'll be brilliant. And I mean, if you'd wanted to kind of present it at a future safeguarding forum, just as a bit of, you know, that we could do that under your update, if you like, for the next one. So yeah, feel free to share things like that with me as soon as you need to.
Can I just pick up on one thing? You know, you mentioned Stripe. In terms of DSLs, if there are concerns around safeguarding, but you're not sure as a DSL whether or not it is safeguarding or it's early help, there is a consultation line that the staff team offer within the East Riding. So I'll put a link within the number within the chat for that consultation line.
Right.
People, DSLs in particular, worried about whether or not they have a safeguarding concern. I'd rather people ring in and discuss that with an advanced social worker to talk that through. I think that's a better idea, to be honest. Yeah, that's a better idea anyway from our perspective, really, so that they do get that direct support. So yeah, thank you, Margaret. That'd be really good. Okay, I'll do that. And you know, Julian's going to speak a little bit later around the training offer, because as a partnership, we're always adding to that learning and development officer offer. So Julian can talk through that a bit later in the agenda. All right.
Great, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And Catherine, would you like to do a little bit of an update from the Safeguarding Adults Board, if that's okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So the board met in January. That was the normal board meeting, and really just the highlights of that, I guess, are the MAPA, the multi-agency public protection arrangements, sort of annual report was tabled at the meeting. We also talked about there was an ICB integrated care board update. There was also what's coming down the line, really, the sort of peer review of the Safeguarding Adults Board. So that's kind of looking at you know, a bit of a challenge, I suppose, for the AFAB. You know, are we being effective? Are we, you know, against other boards, other areas? And I think that will sort of develop, but that's certainly coming. In terms of, you know, highlights that are coming down the line, I suppose there's the Safeguarding Week. I can mention that now, which is last year we did that. Well, we've done it in November. That was the Safeguarding Adults Week, and that was actually met at the report, a kind of evaluation report was tabled at that board meeting. And you know, that I think that was successful. I know that Airbus were involved in that, and possibly, you know, lots of other people here as well. And hopefully some of you attended some of those online events. But we are hoping to do a joint collaborative venture with North Yorkshire York Hull this time, and East Riding in the summer, which is June the 19th to the 23rd of June. So we haven't had a planning meeting yet, but I think the first one of those is the 3rd of March. So, you know, we'll kind of let you know on that. And I have got confirmation that the health bus is also available that week, which is great, because we've had the health bus. I don't know if you've seen that in East Riding. It's the kind of the health bus that does vaccinations, or has done in the past. But we got use of that in November, and it was obviously quite cold. It was a quite cold week, I think, that week. So I'm looking forward to getting that in June. And obviously it's not just adults this time, it's adults and children. So I think that would be really, you know, good event. And if people want to sort of, you know, provide leaflets, etc. for that week, then we can look at that further down.
It'd be really good to promote the conference as well, Catherine, during that week. We can promote, you know, the Safeguarding Conference that we're going to have on the 6th of July. So we can really kind of push that out a little bit, which will be really good. And obviously in terms of voluntary sector workshops, I'm sure, you know, Gemma will be really keen to deliver a workshop. I think the last one we had during Adults Week was about 70 people attended, didn't they, Gemma? So, you know, just developing safe cultures in the voluntary sector would be brilliant to do that again, really. Maybe do it with Hull, Gemma, as well. Maybe do it with Helen in Hull, if it's that would be quite good to do.
It's the first time that Hull have sort of been kind of invited. I've been sort of chomping at the bit to say, can we get Hull involved in it? And this time, you know, Mark from Safeguarding Adults Board has been invited to that meeting, and obviously we'll, you know, get the children's equivalent as well. That would be really useful, actually. So, and also just in terms of user engagement, that's another sort of big piece of my work is around that, and I know we can maybe have a.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later on the agenda, if that's okay. So, so we'll pick up that together, Catherine. That's brilliant. One of the things I just wanted to mention in terms of the work that I'm doing with around adults, really, with particularly with Jessica Cross and the Adult Social Care Team and Hannah Feeney, is we're very keen to start really connecting the voluntary and community sector with kind of the adult social workers and the adult social care teams across the East Riding, because I think we're at a bit of a starting point for that partnership development. I think I've got a meeting with Hannah on Thursday. No, it's tomorrow, actually. Tomorrow morning I'm meeting with her and Scott to look at the locality sort of safeguarding teams across East Riding. So we work specifically with adults, and what I think we're probably going to start looking at is some networking sessions with the voluntary sector, because I know we did this a long time ago, Margaret, with children's, didn't we? So we're kind of on top of it in a lot of ways with our children's groups, but with the adults groups in the voluntary sector, there's such a lot of them doing some fantastic work, and it's about how the statutory services are working with the voluntary sector, and knowing who's there. I mean, obviously we will keep on doing this with children's, but it's just that I feel there's a lot of work to do. So I've got a meeting tomorrow to start planning how we can do this. So I'll probably be putting on some events, networking sessions, whether they're online or in the real world. I think there's probably room to do the real world now, get people together. So people like yourselves, Elaine, and you know, Deborah and Jill. I just think there's some real scope to develop that really close working partnership with the voluntary sector in terms of adults groups. And as some of you all know, what, you know, Gemma's been meeting with people and for children and for adults to look at what the groups are doing in terms of keeping people safe, and that information is being put on our local links website as well, so that we can have a place to hold the information on what voluntary sector groups are doing in terms of what services they're offering, so that practitioners across the sectors can easily locate voluntary sector groups in terms of who's doing what to keep people safe. So it's in early stages, there's still more to do on that, but that's on our local links website. So if you're not on there, I'll put the link in the chat. If you're not on there and you know you feel you should be, then get in touch with Gemma about that. So that's brilliant, Catherine. Thank you very much for that. So really, I think the next thing on the agenda, has anybody got any questions or thoughts or comments though before we move on? So Shelley, is it all right if we move on to the Violence Against Women and Girls presentation? Do you want me to share it for you, or do you want to do it?
Yes, if you could share, please, Detty, that would be really helpful.
Okay, I'll do that. Hopefully, I'll just bring that up for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you see that, everybody?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay, right, away we go. And I'll try and anticipate when you're going to move to the next slide.
Thank you. Thanks, Detty. So hi, everyone, and thanks for inviting me along to the forum today. So my name is Shelley Goodinson, and I'm the Domestic Abuse and Safeguarding Partnerships Manager for East Riding Council. And I know Detty mentioned that you had talked about wanting an update on violence against women and girls in the East Riding. So this presentation is more about what's going on in terms of our developments around violence against women and girls. So that's how I've written this presentation. It's just briefly pulling together where we have been and what's happened up to this point, and then sort of recent developments and where we're going next, really. So just some history around where we've got to now. East Riding Council signed up to the Humberside Violence Against Women and Girls Statement of Intent in 2021. to tackle violence against women and girls collectively across Humberside. So that was a piece of work that was led by the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner. And hopefully you'll have heard about that and seen the posters as well. And on the next slide, there is a copy of the poster there. So it's just to say as well, if you do want any posters, please get in touch with me and I can arrange for those to be sent out to any organisation if you want any printed copies as well. And that's basically a statement for us all to work together to address and prevent violence against women and girls. East Riding Council also passed a council motion to address VOG in 2021, and one of the next steps regarding that was for us to hold a staff forum, one of our equality, diversity and inclusion forums on this issue, which we held in December last year, so just before Christmas, and it was really well attended by 150 members of staff, and we got a lot of positive feedback on that, and there's some slides coming up a bit more about that as well. And then following that, full council also agreed for East Riding Council as an organisation to become White Ribbon accredited. So White Ribbon being the leading UK charity on addressing VOG and engaging men and boys to reduce violence against women and girls, and about that organisational culture and leadership and culture change in your organisation to help that to help address that and bring on men and boys to challenge that and challenge those sort of languages and behaviours as well, that in an organisation that can present and lead to violence against women and girls. So very much around training the organisation, that culture change, leadership and ambassadors and champions helping the organisation to do that. And it's over a 3-year action plan as well. So we'll be looking at a lot of work at the moment in terms of how we will plan to undertake that 3-year action plan to become White Ribbon accredited. So just move to the next slide, please. So there is the poster. The male violence against women and girls is preventable, and this is the statement of intent to collaboratively work to tackle and address and prevent male violence against women and girls. And there's some statements that we've all signed up to agree to there, and a number of organisations have signed up to that. So if you would like any more posters, please get in touch with me. And there's just some comms that we did on our staff forum. So we called it "Do Behaviours Have Consequences?" and it was about language and behaviour that can lead to harm. So if we go to the next slide, please, Detty.
Yeah, and I will send this out afterwards to everybody, just so that you're aware.
So you can have a read through. So just a bit of detail about the actual forum itself. We had a guest speaker who's Graham Golden, a retired Chief Inspector with the Scottish Violence Reduction Unit. He's been commissioned across the country in quite a lot of areas now around something called bystander approaches, which is around how we can be a positive bystander rather than walking away or being too involved in the situation. It's about training and education around what the right actions are in terms of if you do witness violence against women and girls, and how you can respond and challenge that in a positive way rather than it being shameful or even sort of aggressive or going too far in that approach. And especially around, as an organisation as well, how we can look at it more at that earlier level around that language and maybe even like generational sort of behaviours and language that we see around gender inequality and how that could then lead to harm to women and girls. So it was very interactive and again really well received, and as a result of that we're taking the feedback from the forum and we're going to be looking at some next steps and then building that into our action plan and responses in the council itself. Next slide, please. So we're also a member of the Humberside VOG Strategic Partnership Group, which is led by Humberside Police, and we also attend the Information Advisory Group, which I'm sure you're aware of in this forum, which is the community forum for VOG. And we've also, as a result of that piece of work, commenced our own East Riding multi-agency operational VOG forum, where multi-agency partners are coming together who are involved in VOG to look at what our strategy is and how we can really respond to those gaps and look at next steps for East Riding specifically, and then report back to that Humberside strategic group. The next slide, please, Detty. So as I've said there, we have the statement of intent posters, and if you'd like any, please get in touch. Myself and Matthew Temperton, the Community Safety Partnership Manager, are single points of contact leads now for VOGs. If anybody does want to speak to us, please get in touch, and we'd be happy to discuss. Matthew around the community aspects and sort of the violence against women and girls in the public space, and then myself are more around domestic abuse, more specifically. We've also, this is the CSP that is, and something Matthew knows more about, is commissioned Community in Motion bystander training, which again was delivered by Graham Golden, and that was more around organisations who work in the nighttime economy. And there's some slides about that coming up as well, and that was delivered in January to certain organisations across the East Riding. That was taken up really well as well. And then we also agreed some funding for a CCTV project around high impact areas of crime and VOG in the East Riding, so to improve our CCTV and monitoring of these areas in these high areas in the East Riding. So I think that's just some information about the Community in Motion training. How can we raise awareness of sexual violence? What positive interventions can we do? How can we build reassurance and confidence and intervene? And what is our responsibility to act? So that was just some of the learning outcomes that were in the training. And some more detail about the OCCTV project, again looking at enhancing the provision in the East Riding, explicitly related to VOG, which was written into the project, and it was led by the Community Safety Partnership. We did have our East Riding VOG operational group yesterday. So I just thought I would add a slide there in to just update on the things that we talked about yesterday. I did a bit more of a detailed update around White Ribbon and what we're doing in the council and our initial steps to explore how we might address and come together in terms of a steering group to begin our White Ribbon accreditation process. We had an update from the police on the nighttime economy and what they're doing around that and violence against women and girls. We had some feedback on the Community in Motion training that I've just talked about, and I fed back on the EDI forum as I've just spoken about. I'll come to the self-assessment in a minute. Matthew did a presentation on online misogyny and his role as Prevent lead and how toxic masculinity, Andrew Tate and the manosphere online space is building.
Which was fascinating, Shelley, wasn't it? It was fascinating.
Yeah, we
with
actually
the whole of the world.
We attended a presentation led by the CSP in the Prevent space around this with a professor, and that's where a lot of that information came from, and it's a very new and emerging piece of work, and something that is, as Matthew said yesterday, is we're sort of trying to be more reactive about, and we don't have a lot of evidence base. So Matthew was able to provide a lot of information from this research that this professor had done around, this manosphere and this online presence, which even I'm struggled to get my head around. A lot of the terminology was very new to me, but it was fascinating. So that's why we thought it'd be really interesting to just bring that together and bring to the VOG group, and a lot about how this information and this online presence Andrew Tate has is impacting on young men and boys in our schools, and the risk to women and young girls as well in schools, and how that's manifesting nationally and locally we were interested in. So it was just to bring that into the East Riding space, really. So there was a presentation on that, which was really interesting, as Detty said, and then we've undertaken a bit of research looking at other local authorities and how they're responding to VOG, and there was a paper that was put together by the Strategic Domestic Abuse Board Support Officer and the Violence Prevention Officer, who's newly in post, and they've put together some recommendations for the VOG operational group to look at in terms of some of the next steps in our action planning. So it was a really interesting meeting. Just going back to self-assessment, one of the things that we do have to do is we've been given a self-assessment tool by the Humberside Strategic Partnership Group, which has 4 priorities around VOG, which is prevention, supporting victims, perpetrators, and working as a stronger system. And we've sent that tool out to everybody to just ask basically for any feedback around any organisations, including the VCSE sector, in terms of what you can offer if you're delivering anything around responding to VOG, or if you are impacted by violence against women and girls and it's affecting your organisation, what if you can feedback anything in terms of that self-assessment around prevention activity, working together as a system, responding and working with perpetrators, tackling perpetrators, and also working with victims or supporting victims. Any information, including the VCSE organisations, would be really helpful for us to pull together what's going on in the East Riding. So I do have that tool, and Detty's got it as well. So if there is anyone who feels that they've got something to offer, please get in touch with Detty or myself, and we can send the tool out, and we'd be really grateful for your contributions for that. And if you need any help with filling it in, because it's a bit of a document, it's a spreadsheet, but it's a bit not complicated, but I can talk you through it, then I'm happy to speak to you as well and help fill it out.
Well, shall I send it to the
from
group
me
today? Shall I send it to the group today, Shelley, just so they've got it after today's meeting, and then they can have a look, and if they feel that they want to contribute, they can get in touch with me. Because I think, what's the deadline, Shelley, for it to
I just put another, we've sent it out once, but I think we're just trying to get as much as we can back, and I put another, I think 10th of March, it was in a couple of weeks. Let's say the 10th of March, or Friday, 10th, yeah.
Brilliant.
10th
That's
of March.
Great. I'll send that out after the meeting. I'll send it out later today, and then people can have a look and then let us know what you think, if you want to complete it and you want some help, or just send it directly back to Shelley. Lovely. Has anybody got any thoughts about violence against women and girls in terms of their own work with young women and young boys, or women and boys generally, of all ages, really? It's all ages. It's not just young people. Obviously, it affects adults. Is anybody doing anything specifically, or would like to know a bit more? Because I do sit on the East Riding Violence Against Women and Girls group to represent the voluntary sector, but obviously I'm not directly delivering. Gemma sits on the Humber Wide Police Violence Against Women and Girls independent advisory group. So has anybody kind of got any thoughts, wants to comment, ask Shelley anything, or myself, or?
Just to say, from Together Women's perspective, we deal with women as perpetrators, so we've developed sort of a program of support, and we pitch it as a relationship course, but the whole point of it is to try and do early intervention work. So when I've been looking round at perpetrator programs, a lot of it don't kick in until people are in the system. And then the majority of it is geared at men. So I just think it needs to be broader. And I think support needs to be a little bit more flexible as well, so that we're not necessarily labelling people. I mean, if somebody did have an issue, if it was a man and he had an issue, where would you go to without getting into services? Would he be able to sort of easily find and participate in something? Because I know sometimes some of the courses, I mean, we're guilty of this, sometimes some of the courses are like in office hours. So for working people, that isn't always very flexible from our point of view. It's because of funding. So yeah, so it's just to sort of flag that, really. Sorry, I'm in the main office, that's why there's a lot of background noise, but I'll put my mute back on.
No, that's great, and that's really interesting. I mean, Shelley's just put something in the chat for you, Jill. So if we can capture that in terms of the self-assessment, that would be really helpful. But Shelley, have you got any thoughts on what Jill was just saying from your point of view?
Yeah, completely resonate with that, Jill. And I think it's about that broader picture, like you say, and even, nationally, there's the male victims position statement male position statement on violence in women and girls, and how those crimes affect both genders, etc. And there are, it needs to be about that holistic response to all, doesn't it? However, the crimes disproportionately affect women and girls, but we do need to consider the impact on male victims and the work around female perpetrators as well. So it's really interesting that that is brought into that space really, and we think about that and make sure it's captured. So I just think it would be useful that, you know, we reflect that in our self-assessment and our East Riding response as well. So thank you for that.
That's great. I'm not sure if it was Isabel or Deborah first, because I know Catherine, you were on. So I'm going to pick Isabel first.
Thanks, Detty. Just to kind of build off what Joe has said there, I think what we find with the older demographic is, first of all, the intergenerational violence is sometimes not on people's radar when we're talking about violence against women and girls. The first thing that goes into people's heads is that intimate partner violence. But we do see, you know, the majority of perpetrators that are reported to us are those people's own family members, so their own adult children. And what we also find with the older demographic is that we are getting a more equitable gender split in terms of victims and perpetrators. There is still a bigger proportion of female victims and a bigger proportion of male perpetrators, but we do start to see it kind of even out at the other end of the age scale, which I think is interesting and something I'd like to see kind of included in just in kind of everybody's awareness really as to you know what that is.
And that's really interesting, Isabel. And I think if I should probably have given Michelle John's apologies, because I don't think she could make today either. And she's from the national charity PEGS, which is very focused on child on parent, and it's about the relationship, not the age. So, you know, child on parent abuse and that kind of thing. And I think she would be really interested in, you know, in terms of what you've just said there. But again, if you could maybe put some of that and reflect that in the self-assessment, because the more views we get, the better our self-assessment will be and the stronger the voluntary sector voice will be, which is great, because I don't know these things other than what you tell me. So, but you know, obviously it's great if you could say it directly, otherwise I might get things wrong. So, you know, so that's really helpful. Deborah.
Yeah, thank you. My question would be, we got our accreditation, it lapsed during COVID, and we got the White Ribbon accreditation reinstated last summer, June time. What we do find is that, yes, we get plenty of champions signing up to the campaign and the awareness. The concern is that we've literally got a handful of men. So how are people, what difficulties are people finding, and how are you targeting men and young boys? I know we've got Gary here from the Scouts service, but within our service, how can we send out weekly reminders about our White Ribbon and our campaigns against the violence to women and girls, but very little uptake from men. I'm just baffled by it, and certainly, is that anybody else's opinion? Is there any ideas on how, other than physically going and grabbing hold of people and saying, come in and listen to this, and what's your feelings? Has anybody got any support that we could jump onto and work with?
I mean, that's really a really interesting point, Deborah, and I think that was something we reflected on yesterday at the actual meeting, and because there was the first meeting we had, I think it was just Matthew. So then yesterday, I think there was 3 men, and again, if you look at today, there's a lot. You know, there's Julian and there's Gary, and then. But Jackie, did you want to come into that point? Because I know you put your hand up just around that point, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to respond to Deborah.
Yeah, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
More just a view from some of the things to sort of share some of the things that I've been trying to do with the group that I've been working with, and to try and be a little bit more creative. And Gary, if you want to jump in at any point, please feel free. So trying to approach it from several different aspects, really. And the 3 just to sort of pick up on is one about working about communication in the workplace, and in terms of trying to really get bosses, workplace managers to think really carefully about bringing into play within the organisation domestic abuse champions, very much in the way that you wouldn't run. So we've talked about you wouldn't run your business without a health and safety rep. You wouldn't run your business without without a first aider. You wouldn't run your business without all those things, and even mental health first aiders now. So really trying to encourage businesses to think a bit wider, really sort of pushing the button to say, no, if nothing else sort of rocks their boat, when you start talking about money, you know, they invest in people's training, they invest in, people going off sick because of the effect of domestic abuse on them. It affects morale. And I think really trying to open the minds of people to think, to also then say, these people are going through enough without them then having their boss creating another issue, because they then either are taken out of work in terms of losing their jobs. So really trying to talk to them, swapping it on its head of saying, by not actually thinking about the consequences, this is costing you money, in addition to all the stress and issues that it causes for those individuals. So that was from a workplace point of view, trying to get people to think how important it is to actually think about this in the workplace. Secondly, is to really start talking to young people, and this is where I was talking about Gary jumping in. With the support of Humberside Scouts, have been absolutely amazing. We've actually launched a White Ribbon Scouts badge, and that's all age-appropriate messages. So split into two different categories. So through the three age groups with one lot of activities, and the older group with the second lot of activities. So really talking to the young people about what are appropriate and inappropriate behaviours, and especially to those who perhaps haven't got the right role models. And whilst it is White Ribbon and obviously violence against women and girls, we do stress through that violence against any gender is not appropriate. It also gives an opportunity for any individuals who've perhaps got issues at home to actually have a safe haven to be able to talk to the Scout leaders. And one of the things that, as I come towards the end of my year, I'm going to be doing, or post my year, is working with Gary and Rachel at how we can actually push the buttons and the agendas to actually try and get this nationally. And any support from any of you that you're happy to give would be fantastic. And finally, the third bit we've tried to do is to engage sports personalities. And we've just been successful in engaging with Hull FC and Hull KR, who, whilst they're against each other on the pitch, we're taking the white from the red and white and the black and white and launching a campaign called White's Not for Hurting. So the two teams are going to stand up united and speak out against domestic abuse and violence against girls. And loads of people look up at them as role models. So I'm really hoping that, we're going to get quite a few ambassadors from the two teams. And when people actually see that they're standing up and they're going to actually be ambassadors and wear the white ribbon, that might also have a knock-on effect on other individuals.
That sounds great, Jackie. Lots of fantastic sort of ideas and things moving forward. And I think that the first point you made about people really understanding the impact on the workplace financially, as well as, in terms of productivity and things, is really important point. So that's maybe something to take away, Deborah. And in terms of addressing it within your own setting, to just highlight the impact it has on an organisation.
We have introduced at the back end of November, December, mandatory training for everybody within CHCP to commence training. It's off the back of routine inquiries and DASH, but it is that, and we've got it as titled Domestic Abuse and Conversations, and it's around starting them conversations around abuse and harm and being able to open up and discuss more. But that is everybody, from the persons that come in to clean up to high management, chief execs, etc. Everybody has to do that training. And certainly and it was just into January, I think we've just got in excess of 32% uptake in that first 4 weeks, 6 weeks of going live with it. I'm not sure what the numbers are now, but certainly we are looking at opening that experience and that knowledge and just getting that ability to speak. But I think it is just the men tend to be, no disrespect, but they tend to be a bit quiet, and women do tend to open up more, and we'll discuss things certainly around violence within the workplace and their partners, or how that's affecting. And we've certainly had a few cases of late where staff are raising them concerns, but it's that getting men to show more interest within the partnership to come forward and be more supportive of the campaign that we've got going. So it's just,
yeah, because it is about that wider, it's that, you know, I know it's, you know, obviously domestic abuse is included, but it's that wider violence against women and girls as well, isn't that sexual harassment, that, you know, the bystanders attitude and how that affects things. It's all those wider issues that relate to VAUG, as well as, you know, obviously looking at domestic abuse. I'm going to move to Catherine because she's had a hand raised for a while. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, just a quick observation, really, just in terms of having, you know, teenage girls, etc., and just, I think in terms of starting sort of young, really, in terms of what's acceptable and what's, you know, what's kind of banter and what's not banter, and just sort of knowing the difference really around, because I think there's a kind of low level acceptance for, you know, certainly young girls and women that you know, that is kind of there, and it's I think it's tackling that as well in terms of, and maybe having joint discussions between, you know, men and women around, you know, what is acceptable. And I think I'm just thinking of the sort of, there were cards in terms of, you know, Mr. Wrong and Mr. Right, those kind of things, and what's kind of acceptable conversation, what's not, and so I think you really need to sort of start at a very young age in terms of schools, and, you know,
definitely
well happening. But
I'm imagining education will be, you know, I would imagine education will be a key part of it, Shelley, will it, you know, in terms of working with schools? And
it's something that we've started looking at in the board group around. We've got links with our education and safeguarding and education team, and so they've got statutory responsibilities to look at the healthy relationship education now and building domestic abuse and what is healthy relationships and then behaviours and all that around that as well. But then there's the stuff coming through about violence against women and girls specifically, and around the Andrew Tate stuff and how that's impacting on their behaviours in schools, and then women and girls not feeling safe in schools, and then this acceptance of these behaviours. So there's stuff that we're definitely picking up and looking at, and how we can work with schools about that. So it's definitely on our agenda, and we'll be building that in, Catherine, and it is really important. And I just wanted to go back to Deborah while I'm here as well, if that's all right, just to say about engaging men. I think in the actual process, we looked at that really carefully, and we looked at our comm strategy really carefully around that. So when it was all agreed that we would focus on violence against women and girls and then do our staff forum, we actually called it, we branded it in terms of, do behaviours have consequences, and called it language and behaviour that can lead to harm. So we didn't include violence against women and girls in the marketing and the title to start with, but we brought it in the content afterwards, and the detail around the event, and actually bringing in male ambassadors at the start who can then advocate and promote amongst their male colleagues in teams, and widen it out that way. So we started with clever, sort of quite careful marketing, and then getting on board male ambassadors from the start, even though, I mean, that's one of the things that we need to do to be White Ribbon accredited, but we're sort of trying to bring those in early, even in this planning stage now. And I think we were also informed yesterday that Humber Foundation Trust are White Ribbon accredited, and they've done a lot of work around that. So it could be something that you could contact Sally about, Sally Bainbridge, is it? And Mary's Kane has just sent an email, actually, because I've just sent the self-assessment out this morning again, and she's cascaded it to all the health trusts, asking you all to feed back. So I think there'll be opportunity for you to talk to each other around your plans around VAUG, but also perhaps around White Ribbon accreditation, and how you've all been approaching it. Those that have done it, that is, that have already gone through that. So I just hope that helps a little bit.
Really helpful, and that would be great about kind of linking in with Humber Foundation Trust. I think that would be a really good idea. And Jackie, you have your hand up.
It just an interesting observation of a couple of friends of ours that have been out running recently and have been catcalled and whistled at while they've been out running, and a really encouraging reception from when they've actually called the companies, and two of them were actually really big businesses, and have really taken it on board in terms of that being inappropriate. I know some of you will know that we've got a big meeting at Sewell's rugby ground on the 8th of March. I'm losing track of what month we're in, and what two of the two businesses have actually committed. It was actually somebody from the office of the PCC who was one of them that was wolf whistled at, which wasn't a good idea. But they've actually committed to coming to the meeting on the 8th and are looking to actually sign up to White Ribbon, which, you know, and that's just from somebody proactively thinking, I'm not going to put up with this, and when I get home I'm going to ring the company.
Yeah, that's great. Elaine.
Yeah, I'm just conscious of time, so I'll speak quickly. I'm just in education background, so I was interested in what you were saying about young people and the banter and so forth. Ofsted did a report in 2021 around peer-on-peer abuse, and schools now have to report on their safeguarding procedures for peer-on-peer abuse, which could include harassment, upskirting, social media, sexual name calling, etc. And if schools don't have adequate safeguarding procedures around that particular type of reporting, they could be deemed inadequate. So Ofsted was so concerned about the reports they were getting about the prevalence and the increase in not just secondary but primary schools too. That they've commissioned this report. It's July 21, I think it is, if anybody wants to have a look at it.
Can you put it in a link in the chat or send it to me afterwards, Elaine?
Yeah, I will do. I'll find it and
I'll
send
share
it.
it. That'll be really helpful. Yeah,
And that's something that we can ask in the Evolve group about, to back to it,
Yeah.
safeguarding education, how they're actually monitoring that, and any feedback from schools around that.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, that's all really helpful and really interesting. And Gary's put some links into the work that they're doing at Scouts in terms of educating young people and the White Ribbon badge that they're doing there, which is great. And you know, hopefully we can look at it in terms of other organisations and look at things nationally, and you know, anything we can do to support with that, let us know. But I think that's really good piece of work. I'm going to move us on, if that's okay, to the next agenda item. Shelley, is there anything else you want to just add?
Yeah, just quickly, I've just popped in the chat the what Matthew mentioned yesterday. There's a new web page to report violence against women and girls related crime around sexual assault and other sexual offences. It's a new web page where you can actually report to Humberside Police around sexual assault, other sexual offences, or violence against women and girls type offences. So I've just popped it in the chat, and they're going to do some marketing around that. So I just thought I'd share that with you all today, because it's something that we can use from this point forward.
Absolutely, yeah, that's brilliant. That's some practical kind of tools that we can use, we can share with our colleagues, with our network. So if anybody wants to report things in, please have a look at that link and take note. We'll be sending the chat out afterwards, as I said, as well, so you'll get all this information afterwards. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for that. That was great, Shelley, and thanks for some great discussions, everybody. I'm going to move us on to Julian, if that's all right, Julian, with yourself. He's going to do a presentation on the learning system through the Safeguarding Children's Partnership. So do you want me to share it for you, Julian, or?
I can share it, that's fine.
Okay, brilliant.
Well, hope so anyway.
There you go.
Right, so just to say, just building on what was just said, it is absolutely right. There was an Ofsted report into sexual harassment. There was a specific piece, a specific section has been added to keeping children safe in education. And the Safeguarding Education team have been delivering briefings and additional training to schools for the last year and a half around that. But it is very interesting. So what, just very briefly, what Ofsted found was there was an enormous gap between staff perception of sexual harassment within schools and young people's experiences. And what they basically said, sort of summarizing it, was you can't, and this is a much wider issue across safeguarding. You can't wait to be told that something's a problem. You need to be actively pursuing it, and that doesn't matter whether you're a school, whether you're a voluntary organisation. You need to be looking for it. And we have just had in October of last year the publication of the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, which says exactly the same thing. You cannot wait as an organisation to be told that you have a problem. You need to be proactively looking for it. So it is a theme that goes through a lot of work that's happened over the last couple of years. So I'm here just to talk a little bit about the training offer for or the learning and development offer for East Riding Safeguarding Children Partnership. So people may be aware that sort of pre-COVID, we used to offer a huge amount of different courses, and things have changed over time. We now have a hybrid offer. We offer e-learning, we offer face-to-face training, and we also offer virtual training. And so the balance, and this is what was agreed between the partners, is that we try and make sure, and in as much as possible, that the training is virtual, unless we believe that particular piece of training would benefit particularly from being in person. As someone that's overseen training for the last couple of years, what I've generally found with virtual training is that we have, it's almost exactly 50-50 of people saying how much they enjoy virtual training, how much it is easier to access, and all of those kind of things. And then the other half are saying, why can't we be face to face? So it's I think we've probably got the balance about right at the moment, and we're certainly seeing a good increase in terms of our take up. So the big change for us is that we have a new learner management system. So this is almost a year old now. It came into place in April of last year. It's replaced the old e-learning system that we had in place for over 10 years, and our sort of general booking system, which was, if I'm honest, very much Excel based and was hugely labor intensive. So the big advantage of this system is that everything is there. So if you register for this system, you can have access to our e-learning, you can have access to our virtual training, you can book places on our face-to-face training, you can have access to recordings of previous training that's gone out. The other thing is that if you're registered on this system, we also share through this system to the people that are registered on it. We share external training that comes. So there's recently something that came to me from the National Centre for Child Sexual Abuse, which we then shared to all of the registered users. So it is something that is really useful for anyone that has an interest in safeguarding. Even if you're not looking to book immediately or book on anything immediately, it is really useful to be on there, because we share a lot of really useful stuff and really useful external stuff that's coming up. This is the sort of format. You'll see that we have a number of links there to external training like Mental Capacity Act. There's a link to the diary. We also have the flexibility within this, so we have different you'll get different links on your page depending on what organization you're from. So you'll see that there on my screen there's a safeguarding education team page. That little box only appears if you're in an education group, so you wouldn't see it if you were logging in from a voluntary organization, and vice versa. So the basics, the simplest thing to say is that we did not transfer anyone from the old system. There was not any pull through of information. if as an organisation or if as an individual you need anything from our old records, we can access them, but that system has gone and nothing came through. So everyone needs to register anew. We've done really well over the last year. We've got over 5,000 users registered, which is great. Obviously, an overwhelming majority of them are schools and early years. They're the people that use our system the most. But it is a relatively straightforward system, and that's the other big advantage, is that this is a really user-friendly system in that against what we used to have. The link's there, but it's on our website, and if you go through, you will be able to register on the system, and so the only thing that you need to do, or you need to make sure to do, is you get asked to join a group. And it's really important you join a group, because that allows us to identify you. So all organisations that we are aware of, or that people that have used the system previously, are on there as groups, but we can also add groups, and that just comes through to us and our admin. It just makes it really easy for us to be able to pull off some really good data around who's using the system, how they're using it. It also allows us to be a bit more challenging around who's using up space in our system but not completing training. So in the past, on our previous system with e-learning, we had about an 80% completion rate, which is pretty poor, frankly, when an overwhelming majority of that training is statutory training that staff need to do to do it. So the other big thing is that all the training that we offer is free to the voluntary sector, to community groups. What I would always say, and this is what I say whenever I'm talking to Detty or to other people from the voluntary sector, is I will always advise voluntary organisations to speak to ERVAS or speak to SMILE before accessing our training. Our training is overwhelmingly for professionals, and it might well be we have a very specific focus, and it might well be that if you want something that's more voluntary organisation linked, that it would be useful for you to access something that's more more sort of catered to your organisation. But the bottom line is all of this training is available to anyone that's working with children in the East Riding. So if there is, particularly what we find is that if there is a particular topic that you need, or you feel that it would be really useful for you to sort of get more information on, then absolutely you can access our system, and it is all entirely free. The only exception to that, and this is something that we are going to be much tighter on over the next year or so, is that if you're signing up for something, you need to do it. It's a simple thing. We've had a big increase in cancellations, big increase in people not turning up, particularly to virtual training, and that's a real challenge if other people can't access it. In terms of face-to-face and virtual learning, these are the courses. I'm not going to go through them individually, but these are the kind of topics that we're covering. This does change from time to time, because we are always reviewing with our partners what we're offering. If people don't know about graded care profile, that's a tool that we use in the East Riding around neglect. It's a really useful tool for people to understand, and that's one of our training courses, which is face-to-face. It's a whole day in a room, really getting to know and understand the tool. We've just revamped our Safeguarding Children with Disability course, which I'm really glad about. It's something that is very high profile. It's been an area of weakness in the East Riding in the past, and it's something that really needs that support. Online safety training is something that gets delivered alongside the Humberside Police. All of these training courses are delivered and facilitated by people from within the partnership. So they are all facilitated either by trainers or by practitioners from within local authority, police, health services. Our substance misuse is delivered by public health, and again is really a very popular course. The thresholds, referral and consent briefing is led by someone within the Safeguarding and Partnership Hub. It is there to support people's understanding of the child protection thresholds, how things work within the front door, within the East Riding. It is really important that people know that if they are going to be in a position where they might be making what used to be called a referral is now called a request for service into the front door, which used to be called EHASH and is now the Safeguarding and Partnership Hub. So those briefings happen on a monthly basis. It's an hour to an hour and a half. And again, it just gives you a really good overview of what people might need. The last course there, Working Together to Safeguard Children, we deliver on a monthly basis. And that's like our core multi-agency safeguarding course. So that is the course that designated safeguarding leads for schools have to go on. It's a mandatory course for them. It's a full day face-to-face, but it's a really good course if particularly for people who are new or are new to the needing to actually be actively involved in safeguarding cases, going to child protection conferences. All of that is covered within that course. So one of the other things that we're able to do with our new system is that we're able to host courses on behalf of other people. Like I said, we've got thousands of users registered on our system who work with children in the East Riding. And because of that, we've been able to actually host some training that's being delivered by the Domestic Abuse Partnership and the Domestic Abuse Standard 1 and 2. They are evidence-based CPD approved training on domestic abuse, and they're being delivered by the Domestic Abuse Partnership, but are available to book through our learner management system, which again just makes it easier for people. They don't need to be registering in multiple different places to access different safeguarding courses. In terms of e-learning, we have a core offer. Our core offer is made up of 4 different courses, but and this we're still trying to get the message out there. So the idea is that we offer safeguarding level 1, 2, and 3 and safeguarding education. They are 4 courses that cover the same information, but just in different depth. So what we tell people to do is to complete the course that's relevant for their role. So they should only be, and if we are onto it, which we generally are, if people start asking for all of those courses, we tell them to go away and come back and tell us which one they need. Because for almost all roles, it will be absolutely clear which of those courses you need. For example, safeguarding level 1 on average takes about 20 minutes to complete, and safeguarding education takes 3 to 4 hours. And so it is really important that people understand, if they're accessing it, that they need to be doing the right course for their role, because it covers the same area, it just covers it in different depth. And for those people, and it does happen occasionally, who've ended up doing 3 or sometimes even 4 of the courses, they get very bored, and it's not going to make sense. We also have some guides that are built into the system to help people understand what courses they should do. There is a what's called an e-learning courses explanation that actually lays out for people which types of roles should be doing. For example, for an overwhelming majority of staff, safeguarding level 2 makes sense. If you've got a particular safeguarding responsibility within your organization, you should be doing level 3. And obviously, if you work in an education organization, you should be doing safeguarding education. If you don't, you shouldn't, because there'll be a lot of stuff that's not relevant to your role, because obviously the specific stuff, because of the Keeping Children Safe in Education legislation, that only applies to educational establishments. The other e-learning that's there, again, this is to help support practitioners' understanding. They need particular understanding in sort of some areas, child exploitation, fabricated illness. We have had a increase in take up of training around fabricated illness. We do have, and we did carry out a rapid review last year in relation to a fabricated illness case in the East Riding. So it is really important that people understand it. Safer sleep for babies is something that we've offered for a number of years in conjunction with East Riding Public Health. We've had a huge increase recently on demand for that, and unfortunately that is overwhelmingly from the early years sector, and people may be aware that there was a child that died in the Midlands in an early years setting, and there are questions around safe sleep practice within that organisation. We also offer some other things, other training around that sort of go into the emotional mental health area, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, understanding young minds. And the last course there is understanding the impacts of the trio of vulnerabilities, which is what we used to call the toxic trio, which is the impact and safeguarding impact on children of parental mental ill health, substance misuse, and domestic violence. Again, that is a really good course, and particularly for people that are sort of getting their heads into the safeguarding sphere. Like I said, one of the other things that we're able to do on this system is to actually record stuff. So we've got a number of recordings from last year's Safeguarding Week from June that are now on our system, able to be accessed through the system. We've also got a narrated PowerPoint of the online safety briefing that's being delivered in conjunction with Humberside Police. There are a couple of sessions that are about to be added on there. One of which is learning lessons, which is something that I presented myself, which it links to a learning lessons review that was carried out in the East Riding, and also the rapid review that I talked about that involved fabricated and induced illness. And I've also done a briefing, and I did this as part of the November Safeguarding Week. I did a briefing on the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. And I just need to pull that video together, and then that will be on the system. There's a couple of things that we discontinued. So we used to offer refresher courses. We don't do that anymore. People need to go and do the course again. We only expect them to do it every 3 years. And the other thing that we don't offer anymore is FGM training. And that's partly because we are actually offering a virtual offer, so virtual training around FGM, but it's also, and more significantly, it's because the Home Office has free FGM training. And generally speaking, with these things like with Prevent, where the Home Office is offering a free course, it makes sense for people to access that, because then we have a consistency of the information that people are accessing across the country, not just within the East Riding.
Can I ask in regard to that, Julian, sorry to interrupt, but with regard to the government's course, is that listed on the website on your sort of learning and development system?
Yes, it is. It's linked through, so people can go straight through it. It's on our website as well.
And just so everybody knows, FGM is female genital mutilation. I think that's still what it stands for, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And like I said, we have delivered a couple of sessions around FGM, because it is something. It's one of those topics that it's very easy to make assumptions that it's not it's not going to be an East Riding issue because of the demographic that we have here, but that's demonstrably not the case. And the other really important thing about FGM is that there is mandatory reporting requirements around it. So it is one of those areas where there isn't discretion around making statutory services aware. If you become aware of something, it's a mandatory requirement, and you're committing an offence if you don't follow it through. So it is really important that anyone's working with, whether it's adults or children, knows the responsibilities around FGM. And that's it. Like I said, our website, if you click on erscp.co.uk, click on learning and development, it will take you through. It explains to you sort of the makeup. You can download our diary. So our diary currently runs through to, I think, April of this year. There are, if you actually go onto the system itself, as we add courses, they go straight on there. So you'll find that there are courses running through all the way through 2023. If you find a course, but there isn't any availability, the chances are that we're going to be putting more dates on for that. So you can join a waiting list, and then you'll be notified when we add more dates onto that. But otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions. But that's pretty much what I was.
That's great. That's brilliant, Julian. Thank you so much. And I will share the presentation with everybody later today. I'll send both presentations out, and Gemma will send them out with the minutes as well. But that's brilliant. I know we're very pushed for time, but has anybody got anything that they would like to ask Julian while he's here? And what I would just say is that even if you're not working directly with children, but you are working with adults or families, you know, it's still being aware of the children within those settings. So it's definitely worth familiarising yourself with the website, with the training offer, and those external links to other providers of good training, so that you're prepared for everything. That's what I always think. I
would also say, one of the things that I found really interesting when I've delivered some stuff on the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse was the age range. So the age range of the victims that spoke to the inquiry was basically from 19 to late 80s, and it peaked around 50 to 60, and it's probably the best single piece of work that I've come across in terms of looking at the long-term impact of child sexual abuse, and you know, there was a proportion of victims who were talking for the first time in their 50s and 60s about stuff that had happened, you know, decades before. So that's struck a particular note with me, just because, yeah, we can think about you know, the children's workforce, you know, those people that work with children, but actually if you're working with adults, particularly if the chances are a proportion of the adults you're working with have suffered some form of abuse.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. Well made. Well, thank you very, very much, Julian, for that. I think that was really useful, and hopefully people have a good look and we'll get them booked onto things. So the next item on the agenda, and I am aware of time, is Catherine and myself to talk to you all a little bit about user engagement and how we involve adults in particular. We're going to look at really today in regard to hearing the voice of adults, how people you know, gather feedback, collect feedback, what they do with it, how that can be kind of fed through into service planning through things like the Safeguarding Adults Board and social care services. So it was just an opportunity to have some discussion with yourselves, really. But Catherine, did you want to say a bit more about it? Because obviously from the Safeguarding Adults perspective.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so in terms of, I mean, it's been on our agenda for quite some time, really, in terms of how we communicate with people and how we engage people in the work of the board. And obviously we've had a kind of communication strategy for since 2014 in terms of how we put things out through the press, etc., and it's kind of formal arrangement really of how we would do things. But it's really, how do people who have gone through a safeguarding experience, get to influence what the work of the board, and how is their voice sort of heard, really, which we do need to get better at. And I think that's the starting point in terms of why we're coming to this point, really, of developing sort of user engagement plan, if you like. And alongside that, there's obviously the voice of people with lived experience. It might be that do we want the public to be more aware of types of abuse, so that therefore they can put in a concern form, because the majority of our concern forms are, which quite rightly will be care homes, will be people working in the sector. But in terms of the number of people who are putting in concerns around public, how do we sort of develop that, I suppose, and how are people aware of different types of abuse? And I know that's everybody's job here as well, isn't it, really? So I think, there are already existing mechanisms around involving people within services. I'm thinking of in terms of healthcare, in terms of the Humber Foundation Trust have got PACE, I think it's patient and carer experience, quite involved and well sort of developed mechanisms, really. So we don't want to recreate something for something's sake, but what we do want to do is use those existing mechanisms where people are talking to people and get those voices, so that we can maybe be a mechanism for those individual
coordination role, isn't it? It's a bit of coordination, I think. I see it very much when we look at what we do with young people's voice. And we've got the Youth Voice Steering Group, for instance, where we've got about 40 members who do different pieces of work around youth voice and influence. And we come together regularly to sort of share ideas and link in with each other and coordinate activity. And there's a lot of cross-cutting topics. So you could look at mental health and how that fits through many different youth forums. I kind of see it a bit like that, Catherine, where we'll have a lot of really excellent work going on in the adult services with around adults' voice, whether it's in the voluntary sector or whether it's within the statutory services or the public services, if you like. I know, Jill, when we were talking about the domestic abuse work that you do and how you collect information through the work that you do at Together Women, and we had a big discussion there with the group around how we can gather the voice of victims and survivors and everybody really impacted by domestic abuse. So it's kind of joining it all up, isn't it, and coordinating it and looking at what do we currently do, how can we share really good practice around that, how can we gather the feedback, and although it may be used currently to influence a specific service or for monitoring purposes or for something like that, but it's what we've got some rich information that we could probably do a lot more with in terms of shaping our services locally. I have some ideas about because we are quite limited on time today, but we wanted to have a bit of a conversation. But I do feel it's probably going to be something we look at as another opportunity to get together to look at this specifically, and probably join it up with the work we want to do around gathering the voice and feedback around domestic abuse, because a lot of the people there will be adults. So I do think it's an opportunity to maybe put something on so we can have a good couple of hours to discuss kind of user engagement and voice and influence of adults around keeping safe, which would include domestic abuse, but other things as well. So because I don't want to rush anything, and for today it was just to sort of bring it to the attention of the group. Has anybody got any? I mean, Jill, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, in my experience, you do get, when people are quite away on the journey, sometimes people want to get very vocal about their own experiences of domestic abuse. I actually have quite a lot of people who come to the centre wanting to volunteer because they want to share their story. I think one of the things that I have to manage is that very issue, because actually for people currently going through domestic abuse and stuff like that, sometimes it's the last thing that they want to hear. One thing that I've flagged with the whole DA forum is the issue of the way that organisations assess people and talk to them about their experiences and how they assess their needs. And the use of Dash and stuff like that, because actually, do you know what? We ask victims to tell their story lots and lots of different times. If you follow the process of somebody going through, say for instance, that first interaction with the police, then the referral to DAP or DBAP, then the inclusion if there's been a sexual assault with Blue Door. and then a referral to Together Women because you want them to do our groups. Actually, they've told the story there 5 times. Now, for anybody who's done any work around trauma, actually, that is the worst possible thing we could be doing with people. So for me, one of the conversations I'm starting at the moment is around whether there's an appetite for people not to combine assessment forms, because otherwise I think we'll just get absolutely bogged down in what each agency does. But how we share that person's experience without re-triggering that and re-triggering the trauma for them. And it's funny because I've bought a lot of Rockpool training products, and because I quite like their therapeutic toolkits. And I sent them an email just to say, because obviously they work with different organisations all over the country. And I said, are you aware of anywhere that is doing anything around either shared assessments or the way that they share people's experiences to stop that re-triggering? And their reply was no. So I just think it is something that we need to have a look at.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, really interesting. And I think everybody would really understand that, because I think with working with children, working with adults, you know, with regard to anything that's been traumatic, you know, it is something that we've always tried to look at in terms of those repeating experiences, isn't it? And how we share information. But that's been really interesting, Jill. It's that kind of feedback. It's how we gather that consistently. And I think I'd like to have a workshop to invite voluntary sectors too, with supporting partners, to really drill down a bit into them systems. Lisa's got a hand up.
Hi there, sorry, I just wanted to add to that, just a reminder that Debbie Hancock has set up the Lived Experience Network for survivors who do want to share and put back in to help to be able to develop our strategy, our services. I have just tried to put the A5 poster in, but it won't let me do it for some reason. So I'll send it to you again, Detty, just for it to go out.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Because I mean, obviously, I know Gemma's got an action from the last Domestic Abuse Forum to link with Debbie and discuss it, because Debbie was there. And to have a chat about it. But looking at that wider user engagement within all of keeping adults safe is something that Catherine, Marie and myself are really keen to look at. And I just think rather than have separate workshops on different areas of voice and influence of adults, it would probably be best to bring it all together, because some of the services would want to be in both anyways, like yourself, Jill. So you come to both forums, so you wouldn't want to come to two. So I'm thinking if we plan something to invite voluntary sector groups too, and obviously yourself, Catherine and Marie, and Debbie, myself and Gemma, just to have a real focus on how we can really improve that reach to users and listen to them. Catherine's got a hand up.
Yeah, just in terms of that sounds a really brilliant idea. I think in terms of what you've been saying, Jill, I've spoke to people in probation, and it's exactly the same story about repeating their story, and you know, but there are some key people that really do want to sort, you know, they've kind of come out of the service, like for example the prison service, they've come out of that and are kind of grateful for that and want to kind of feedback into the system, so by sharing their experiences and influencing things, then I think it's how we structure it, isn't it? You're absolutely right in terms of, you know, how we manage that kind of expectation of people giving us their voice as well, really.
But already such a key piece of work we could look at doing based on feedback. And obviously, Jill, you're being told that, but you need support to be able to move that along, which I think something like having that strategic oversight and support from, you know, various organisations and individuals, that's what we need to be able to do. And I think there'll be a lot of other things that we can pick up. So I think if I try and plan a workshop, probably before, maybe just after Easter. I'm just thinking of time wise, people's diaries are probably going to be chocker before Easter, so think about after Easter, but ask people to come with sort of idea. It's not particularly to bring people to, just to start with, let's just start with getting the, you know, the workers around the table, for want of a better way of putting it. You know, we can have a good conversation, because we won't want to bring you, you know, sort of service users or beneficiaries, you know, to a meeting until we've got a clear idea of where it's going and how it's going to work. So I think if we could maybe establish that, see what already exists, what really good practice is happening, keep it focused on adults, because I think we've already got stuff going on with young people and youth voice. That's kind of covered. So for now, we need to have a real good look at adults, and we'll start planning that and send something out in the next couple of weeks with dates, and we can have a hopefully really good focused discussion. Is that all right? Does that sound like a plan? Great stuff. Thank you very much for that. So really, it's just updates from all over the next 6 minutes. So I'm going to go first. So as I've mentioned, we've got our safeguarding conference taking place at the lovely Humberside Scouts headquarters at Raywell Park on the 6th of July, and it'll be all day and then evening as well, but slightly different audiences, so we can accommodate, you know, professionals from the voluntary sector who are in paid work and unpaid work as well. So then we've got a whole range of workshops, and we'll be sending out further details once Gemma's finalised the schedule, because I know, Gemma, you and Gary are meeting a party soon, so that's fantastic. So that was just the bit I wanted to say. So who would like to go next? Has anybody else got any updates that they would like to share? Just pop a hand up. Is there anything, Sophie, you want to say about Smile that you haven't mentioned already? Just obviously for those people who might not be aware of what Smile does.
Yeah, hello everybody. First of all, thank you very much for having me on today. It's been really insightful for myself and Amelia, I'm sure. For those of you that weren't on and have recently joined, I don't know if anybody's left, I'm the new community development manager at Smile. So it's really important for us to have that insight into safeguard in terms of how we can support and refer within the community groups that we work with, because it will be a huge range of people, from young people to adults to older people as well. So it's been really insightful for me to understand the networks in place, the different groups that can support, and Detty, it'd be really great to meet with you individually as well to understand how Smile works with it. Irvas. So on this call as well is Amelia. So Amelia is one of our community producers. She's going to be working kind of on the ground, sort of with groups, with different organisations in the voluntary sector as well. And I know that our partnership with you, Detty, is really, really important. So it'd be great to get together.
Let's get a date in the diary. Sophie, yeah. I'm thinking about this next, you know, we've just talked about having like an event to look at user engagement, voice influence. Maybe myself and Gemma and you and Amelia could meet up and have a bit, because obviously you've got a reach to the voluntary sector. We can have a really good conversation about how to sort of move forward, get some dates, and obviously getting dates from Catherine and from Marie as well, and Shelley, because
fabulous.
So we'll get that, and we can just have a bit of a general chat about what we do anyway.
No, but like I said, it's been really insightful today to hear what is going on, the work that's going on, and even just for us as Smile to be aware of it. It's so important for our awareness that we can link into the groups that we work with, you know, appropriate. So yeah, thank you so much. And
you let me know some dates. You send some dates.
Yeah, of course.
Weeks that you and Amelia are free, and then we'll get something set up. That's brilliant. Thank you. Gemma, anything you want to add from your point of view and the role that you do with us?
Sorry, did you say me?
Yeah, just anything you want to update.
The only thing that I think you've discussed everything, we've shared everything. The only thing I will just drop in is our DA survey link. It's more so just any voluntary and community sector organisations or anybody who connects with them. We have got a domestic abuse survey trying to capture a snapshot of where VCSE groups are and feel in relation to identifying and tackling domestic abuse. So if people don't mind sharing that link, I would be most appreciative. The deadline's not until the end of March.
That's brilliant. Julie, it might be if you could share that through your network, that would be really helpful to give us an insight into the groups you're working with, particularly around kind of cultural, BAME needs, issues, anything like that as well. Fantastic. And again, Sophie and Amelia, if you want to share that through Smiles network, that would be brilliant too. But yeah, we have still got probably about 5-6 weeks left on that, haven't we? And that'll be really, really helpful for moving into the next phase. Has anybody else got anything else they want to share or update on? It's been a really great meeting, I have to say. I've had lots of new faces today. So I'm really looking forward to the safeguarding conference, because I think it's the timeliness of it, and it's in July, so the weather's going to be awesome. And we'll all sit out. It is bring your own lunch. Bring your own lunch and your own tea. But Gary, how lovely will it be up at yours in the sunshine in July? It'll be great. Fantastic.
Okay. Sunshine, Betty.
Yeah, I want you to book the sunshine. Brilliant stuff. And what we are going to hopefully have like a marketplace, so people can bring stands, stalls, information about what they do, that kind of thing as well. So that'll be really good. And it'll just be nice to get everybody together, won't it? I think everybody's ready for it, really. So yeah. Okay, right. Well, if there is no other business, I think we're going to set the date. I did have a date, actually. I think, is it May? I picked a date because Colette Oxtoby is going to attend and do a presentation. And I think I'd looked at the next date as being the 24th of May. I did wonder if everybody would be okay to do it in a morning, just because I'm aware that there is some groups can't come because they don't do afternoons. So I thought we'll mix it up a bit and maybe do a morning. Would people be okay with that? If I did the 24th of May, Wednesday in the morning, 10 o'clock for a couple of hours, and then a couple of people who might be able to attend then. Right, well, I'll set that. And we've got Helen Jones-Brown talking about the Barnardo's Partnership Project and giving an overview of that, which would be brilliant. And we've got Colette Oxtoby, who's going to be talking about young people gaming and gambling from YGAM, so that'll be brilliant as well. And we can also feed back hopefully on the user engagement event, because we'll hopefully have maybe either had it or have some plans for it. So yeah. Right, so thank you very much, everybody. Bang on 3 o'clock, and we'll send some information out later today to you all, and then we'll send the minutes out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So thanks, everybody.